It's just popping me directly to Facebook. This is so interesting. Right. You know what we're going to do is just start going, and we're going to then tag it over to YouTube in a bit. All right, so we're live on Facebook. So let's begin. Hey, you guys, welcome to your next Hypno Happy Hour. I am happy that you're here. I hope you're ready for the next 30 minutes or so. If this is your first time jumping on, hey, I'm Derika, your hypno coach. And this whole segment is all about releasing what's stopping you, what's stopping your success and happiness, and then rewiring your mindset to actually embody and live that life that you are destined and deserve to live. And as you can see right next to me today, we have a special guest. He is a phenomenal coach. I'm going to get into all of his expertise here in a moment, but each week is a different topic. And so I've brought Jay here to talk about fear. Now say me, if you're like ready to conquer fear, if you're ready to overcome fear, you don't want it to be stopping you from making the decisions and those wonderful goals and desires that you have in life. You're tired of fear. Give me a yes, 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 because we are going to break through that today. He is going to dive into some phenomenal rewiring tips to help you stand into your courage and confidence. Okay. So I'm going to first, Jay, welcome. Hello, welcome to the Hypno Happy Hour.
Hello, Derika. I feel like I should put on that hello, like my show persona.
Do it. This is the Hypno Happy Hour. So everyone here you're coming for enthusiasm. You're coming to be in
I'm not sure whether you mean hypno or hypo. Like, I mean, I'll just do real and raw, and that's about it. We'll go from there.
I love it. We're going to balance each other out today, you guys. You are in for a great treat. So if you haven't met Jay, I'm going to read his bio so we can get to know him a little bit more, and then we'll jump into that juicy conversation. Okay. So Jay is a mindset and performance coach who helps entrepreneurs and business owners to take back command of their thoughts, emotions, and business so they run their business instead of their business running them. Hey, yes. Over the last 2 years, he's worked with hundreds of clients through his trainings, his one-to-one and group coaching. Jay uses a systematic and measurable process for unlocking the deep emotional blocks in less than 15 minutes. Woo! Yes, yes, yes. We're going to get into how he actually does that.
I've done it in 6, but I don't like to brag.
That's awesome. Welcome, Jay. So you guys, if you've seen some of the posts going around today, it's don't let fear stop you. So Jay, if you could first start out with, we know you professionally now. Can you start out with telling us a bit of your story and how you got into doing what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for me, my life has really been about discovering what gives me purpose, what really lights me up. And for a long time, I never truly got it. In fact, I fumbled around trying to figure out this idea of what's my passion, what's my purpose, what am I meant to be doing with my life? And for me, it already started growing up. See, as a young kid, I used to watch animal documentaries. I love animals and I love the planet. And I would watch these documentaries like relentlessly. And you could always tell who'd been watching the television in my house based on the channel it was on. So my brothers, it would be sport, but they'd always know when Jay had been watching the channel because it would be on Animal Planet, Discovery. And I'd watch all of these documentaries, and it was all about like animals, but a lot of the stuff I watched was about people tearing down the rainforest and all these terrible things that were going on in the world. And as a young boy, I honestly used to find myself full of tears because I just felt absolutely helpless to do anything about it, that this was happening in the world. And as a young boy, I was just like, what am I going to do about it? I'm only kind of 6, 7, 8 years old. And there was this kind of fire inside of me at this point of like, I want to do something, but I'm so frustrated because I'm so young. And I kind of went through the school system, learned from my parents, and I modeled their kind of guidance, which was go to school, go to college. And eventually I joined the Air Force because that was a long, prosperous, and safe career. And when I joined the Air Force, I reached a point where after a few years, I found myself feeling pretty bored and challenged, not really feeling like I was making a difference. I felt pretty powerless to actually help people in my role. To give you context, I was working kind of like 12 hours a day in an office with no windows, and I'd probably get a couple of phone calls, and one of them would probably be a wrong number. So it's safe to say I didn't really feel like I was fulfilling my potential. And I decided one day, against all of my family's advice, that I was going to leave the Air Force and I was going to start my own online business. And the online business that was presented to me gave me an opportunity to help people and actually make money and travel the world at the same time. And naturally, that was really appealing to me. And so I got into this online business and I worked hard and I pushed and I pushed and I was able to create some incredible results, but I kept on coming up against myself. I was coming up against, like, I don't know whether this is really my thing. This lights me up. But then I have all this past trauma in my past, this stuff that's limiting me and stopping me from doing things. I'm procrastinating. I'm doubting myself. And everybody outside thinks I've got it all figured out. But inside, I'm an absolute mess. And so I went on this journey of really uncovering what it was that was limiting, what was stopping me. And essentially, this was the thing that was stopping me from really seeing truly what I was meant to be doing on this planet. And once I'd done that work and I'd been through things like Tony Robbins, I'd been through Landmark Forum, I'd hired different coaches, I'd read the books, done the affirmations, done all the seminars, studied psychology, human behavior, everything there was about it. And I got to a place where people used to say to me, Jay, you're pretty good at this whole training thing and coaching and mentoring. Maybe you should become a coach. Mm-hmm. And I was reluctant at first because I was scared. So I tried using my marketing skills that I learned to try and help other coaches because I was scared of truly becoming what I knew deep down I was meant to be doing, which was to make a difference. And then one day, I decided I'm going to enroll on a coaching course, and I signed up for a coaching course. And on that coaching course, I went through a process which completely shifted the way I saw my past, my parents' divorce. And ultimately, that's what really gave me the confidence to move forward and pursue a career as a coach, which I've been doing for a couple of years now, as you alluded to.
Yes. Ooh, thank you for just sharing that deepness of who you are and your journey that led you here, because I felt just the impulse of those watching, like, yeah, I get that. I get that. I mean, the whole fact of, like, first we starting up as a kid and you have that deep greatness inside of you that's like, I want to change the world. I want to make the world a better place. You know, like I had that. I can look at my kids, they have that. And so I know that those watching right now, it's like, yeah, I've been feeling this since a kid, right? And then you go through life like, okay, parents, they tell me to do this. Society is saying this is the best route to go. This is security. This is blah, blah, blah. This is the way to do it. But you were sitting for 12 hours a day in like a rat maze where you're feeling unfulfilled. Like, what am I doing with my life? Right? That feeling, and I can see nods like, yeah, I get it. And then you get closer and closer and you start researching. Those that are here are researchers. They're here because they know they're doing mindset work like you and I. They're doing it all, from meditations, the affirmations, the mantras, all the psychology, the Tony Robbins events. Like, come on, everybody is doing this. And so we're like, yes, Jay, tell us more. You found your calling. And I think that's where, and give me a yes if you're there, you guys. This is where a lot of us are, right? You're like, I've got that calling. I should be doing more in life, but I'm scared. I'm scared to do it. So Jay, if you could talk into that piece of like, they have their passion. They know they could be a coach too, or they could open their own Etsy shop, jewelry design, whatever it is. And they're freaking afraid out of their mind, right? There's this point. What do you want to like reach into them right now and tell them? Like, what would be that baby step number one to go from that point into starting something?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing is breathe. That always helps. Just take a deep breath, because for me personally, I'll just quickly share a little bit. I had deep emotional blocks, which I didn't know necessarily existed until I did the work, which clearly a lot of your audience are doing the work right now. And I had a fear of actually not following through, because the truth is I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust myself that I would actually follow through, because so many times I'd come up with ideas, I'd jump from one thing to the next, and I hadn't followed through. So I had like crippling self-doubt of, will I actually do it? Or is it just going to be another thing that I read or invest in, and everybody in my family loses respect for me because, yep, Jay's up to it again. Another bright idea, to the point in which my brother would just say, oh, you just live on another planet. That's what he used to say to me. So how do you go from struggling to trust yourself, scared that you won't follow through, as one example? I mean, I had many other fears, like fear of rejection, fear I wouldn't be enough, fear that I would get found out, imposter syndrome. I had all of those fears that were really getting in the way. I think that fundamentally one of the most important things you need to get to is get clear on what the actual fear is.
Yes.
Because when you get clarity, clarity is going to give you power, the power to change it. See, most people, and this is what happens with the mind, is they fluff the language up. And they take the terminology which you use in personal development, which is, I've got a fear of failure, I've got a fear of success, but they stay at this very surface level. And so the first step we really need to take is dive deep into what that fear is. So for example, if you say I have a fear of failure, okay, great, but what's the consequence of you failing? So if you do fail, let's assume you do fail. What will happen if you fail? Well, if you fail, people might laugh at you. People might ridicule you. Okay, if they ridicule you and they laugh at you, what can happen then? Well, if they ridicule and laugh at me, I'm going to experience massive shame. And what is that going to mean? Yep. Well, that might mean that you're not worthy of love and you're not lovable. And that's a belief that you might hold for yourself. I'll give you another example. I had a fear that people wouldn't like me because I was broken. I'm sure some of you will be able to relate to that. Like, you think there's something wrong with you. You think you're broken. And the reason I actually spent probably the best part of 6 years going round in circles, going to the events like a madman at Tony Robbins, jumping up and down. And I don't know if you, Derika, or anyone in your audience has ever been to a Tony Robbins event. And this is a real problem I have with the personal development industry. It's actually set out to get you to spend more money because it can be addictive. Yeah. I remember like going to a Tony Robbins event and you speak to people and they come up to you like some lunatic, like, hello, like eyes are coming out of their head. Like, you're thinking, Jesus, what are you even on? I thought I was high. And they say, is this your first event? And you're like, yeah, it's my first event. And they're like, this is event number 16 for me. Woo. And I'm thinking, and am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
What the fuck are you still doing here? Something isn't working.
Right. Right.
And I went on this perpetual cycle of trying to figure out the thing that's broken in me, the things that are wrong with me, because the fundamental belief that was driving me was I am broken. So if I am broken, then I'm going to seek a solution to me being broken, which then every new event reinforces that I'm broken and I'm not broken. I need the event. I need the fix.
That's deep. You guys, replay. Put hashtag replay on what Jay just said. Okay, keep going because that was so deep. Go ahead.
And so that was a fundamental belief that was driving me.
Yeah.
I'm broken and people will not like me. And you might have your own variation of this. It might be the, go on, Derika.
Can you put in the comments right now? Because Jay, I'm going to ask you to do something later on. If you can, I'm putting him on the spot, you guys. If you could be so generous to come back after this is finished and come back to the comment thread here for anybody who is willing to step up and put what your fear is down in the comment thread, and Jay or I will get back to you and comment and actually pour love and our thoughts into your fear. So let's just go into, he just got so vulnerable with you and told you all the fears that he was suffering from, right? Not just the fear of not being able to follow through, the fear of rejection, right? The fear of I'm not going to make it. Who am I? They're all going to laugh at me. The fear of what the family is going to say, all this stuff. Like, put it in the comments, you guys. What is the fear you're dealing with right now? He just said, and I agree with this man 110%, you have to get clear. What is your fear? Because it's not until we know can we actually do something about it. So it's a very empowering place to be, but we've got to face it, right? We've got to get in the fire, as Tony would say.
Yeah,
But let's face the fire. Let's get into it, because motivation doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. Jay just clearly said, how many times have you been around someone who goes to this event, hops around to all these different motivational coaches and speakers, but they land in the same place? Like, motivation is like taking a shower. You have to continually do that. We're talking about true change, getting into those programs of fear right now. So if you can comment and say, what is your biggest fear? What is stopping you the most? And just take a second. Jay, you can keep on going, but if you can, you guys, just trust us. If you can get it out, that's the most empowering thing you can do right now. Just type it out.
Yeah, love it. And for sure. So it already starts with getting clarity on that. Like, first of all, you do that, that's going to create awareness, right? Now, you might also be experiencing that fear. Like, you might be feeling it as you're getting in touch with it a little bit more. And it's important that we do experience it, that we don't just suppress it down or avoid it or disregard it. We need to actually experience what the fear is, because here's the thing. Here's the thing about all emotion. It's not just fear I'm talking about here. When we experience the emotion, it's going to give you a clue. And by a clue, I mean you've experienced this emotion before at some point in your life. And that time in your life where you've experienced this before, you might have experienced it multiple times. But the earliest time where you experience it, it was highly painful for you. It was highly painful for you. And in that moment, you made some kind of decision. So when we experience the emotion, we can simply ask ourselves the question, where does this feel familiar to me in my life? Is there a time in my life where this also felt familiar? So, for example, when I first got into business and I would do a Facebook Live, I'd do a Facebook Live and then someone might put a negative comment. I know, negative comment. Someone would judge me. Yeah. And I would experience this crippling like shame and anxiety. Yeah. And I would want to avoid it and justify it and just be like, no, they don't know. What do they know about me? They don't know me intellectually, but still I was feeling the feeling. And so I would feel the feeling and I'd start to get curious and ask myself this question, where does this feel familiar to my life in my life? And I remember when I was a young boy, I always laugh when I share this one. When I was a young boy, I was in Welsh class. I'm originally from Wales. I remember I dropped a rubber on the floor. And this is how simple it can be. And I want you to really get this. I dropped the rubber on the floor and I bent over and I farted. And when I farted, it was really loud and everybody was like laughing at me. And the teacher pointed at me and named and shamed me and ridiculed me. And at that point, I'm sure you can all relate to this, a time where you just wanted the ground to just swallow you whole. Yep. And that's an example of an experience where I had a negative charge, a negative association. So because I had had so much pain, I made the decision that I'm going to learn everything I possibly can, and I'm going to protect myself and try and control everything to avoid actually ever feeling like that again. But then I decided I'm going to start a business. Great idea, Jay, where you put yourself massively out your comfort zone and you need to stretch. But the great thing about a business is it highlights every little thing that you haven't dealt with. And that's why it can sometimes feel like trudging through treacle. So we need to get in touch with the emotion so that we can then get curious and be able to let go of what the belief is. Now, for sometimes it's working like with someone like Derika or myself, where you can actually unpack that a little bit more, because as Les Brown said, it's not always easy to see the picture when you're in the frame.
Yeah, absolutely. That was so powerful, you guys. As Jay said, you know, you come into these new goals with your entire past, right? All those little events that you maybe don't think they have such an impact on you, but subconsciously they still are very active, right? So Jay had that event. He embarrassed himself in front of all of his classmates, just doing something simple, right? But now he's going to put himself out there in front of more mates of the world, right? And his brain still remembers all of that, right? It's not until the programs are released are they not controlling your life. And the fact is that all those events, whether you're putting yourself in a relationship, putting yourself in any new adventure, everything that's, you know, pressed down will surface. And it's time for you to stretch, and actually you have to face them. You have to bust through those things. You can't keep burying them down inside of you. All those fears and insecurities, doubts, worries, all of those things will come up as you grow. And so having a coach by your side is very important, because I don't know about you, but I can't take my eyeballs out and look at myself and observe myself all day, right? That's extremely hard to see your blind spots, which in this case, we're talking about fears. It's like a truck. Also cannot see blind spots. You need a coach, a great coach, obviously a great mentor that's been where you're at and is actually standing where you want to be.
I want to share this one with you, Derika, because this was quite an interesting breakthrough for me. One of my biggest breakthroughs was coming from the realization that I had a fear of my own potential. I had a fear that what if I am actually enough? What if I am actually enough and I can actually do this? Because if I'm enough, if I'm enough, then that means, and this is a big one, right? And people don't always get this one, it's sneaky. If I'm enough, then ultimately, who's really responsible for their own success and their own life? Moi.
Big one. Yep.
And so I had a big problem with being responsible for my own success, because I had a fear that if I went there, if I was truly able to achieve the things that I was telling everyone I wanted to achieve consciously, but on a deeper level, there was this unconscious belief that was self-sabotaging, and you'll be familiar with that terminology. When consciously I was like, yeah, I've got all these ideas, but then there's other things like, no, do not do that. That's bad news. So that would ultimately drive my behavior and would also create more of that jumping from one thing to the next and not following through.
Yeah. And everyone just put yes, as you're feeling this. If you're experiencing anything that Jay says, if you can relate, it lands with you, put a yes, because I had that exact same pattern, that exact same fear where I was like, yes, I'm the whole promoter where I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And a lot of us do this. We jump into it. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to kick ass. Like, yes. And then we come up upon a stretch. We come upon an area that makes us really uncomfortable, or we're getting impatient, or we have to do something we really don't want to do. And then we're like, oh, okay, screw it. It wasn't for me. And then we're going to go like, oh, that one. And we're like, squirrel. And so that ends up being our life, right? But the whole time, any one of those ventures that you and I set off on, or anyone watching, what if that was your big break? right? That could have been a massive opportunity for you if you would have stretched right into that fear and do what Jay is saying here. It's just that little pivot point. But I want to tell you something, the opportunities haven't ended, right? There's many, many, many more to come. But do you want to keep repeating that cycle? Right? That's what we have to ask ourselves.
And that you'll always perpetuate more of what you are, right? And that's the sad reality, that if you're experiencing fear and that's what you're experiencing most of the time, you're just going to create more of that, because where do you ultimately focus? And think about any time you've ever been scared, right? Do you always go to, oh yeah, it's going to be amazing, it's going to be the best case scenario? No, you catastrophize. You think about, what if this happens? What if I make that sales call and they say no? What if I ask the guy or girl out? What if they reject me? What if I start in a relationship and it then falls apart? People with money, for example, people are like desperate to make money, but then what happens is they make money and then they're terrified of losing it.
And they do.
And they do, because here's the other thing. Life swings on a pendulum. And in Buddhism, they believe that nothing is permanent. And that if you think about, for example, if you think about your life and you think about your to-do list and you think about your problems, has there ever been a time where you haven't had a problem? There hasn't. I always like to say that the problem you have is you think you shouldn't have a problem. Yeah. And whenever we have a to-do list, you ever notice that the more you get rid of off the top, the more that's being added to the bottom? Because life goes like that, right? And just like success comes, it also goes. But that's part of life, because that's part of growth. Do you know the average age of a company on the stock market, and companies that have a lifespan, just like humans do, just like everything in the universe does, the average age of companies on the stock market used to be 33 years. But because of disruptive technology and the pace of life, it's now around 19 years a company lasts on the stock market. So even companies have a lifespan, but those that thrive are the ones that are willing to destroy, because they realize destruction is also part of creation.
Ooh, life
is born out of the destruction of something. Forest fires in Australia, all burns down, all the nutrients go into the soil, new growth. And that's what always happens. It's the circle of life. It's what we're so familiar with. And so we're always on this pendulum. And if you realize this and you're able to expect it, I always like to say, if you throw a couple of punches, the universe is going to throw a couple of punches back. It's Newton's third law, if you're interested in researching it.
I love that. Okay, you guys. So if I kind of do a full circle of thinking of destruction, thinking about the contrast and clarity, the problems, the solutions, right? If you look at your fear as this is normal, and Jay, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I'm hearing you're saying, is that we don't run from our fear. We take it in as this is something that, all right, we face you, we see you. We know that we must take care of you for that pendulum to slide into the higher level of us. Like it's necessary. We need this fire. We need this. And that's why I said it's so important, you guys, to put down your fear in the beginning, in the comments. Look at that baby. Like, look at that thing that is created and been a part of you, right? See that blind spot. It's so powerful, because when you're not afraid of this and you face it, you now know what to do with it, right? You can now pivot yourself over into, like you said, what happens if I get rejected? What happens if the girl tells me no? What happens if I get fired, right? Like really face that fire, face that fear. And what you'll see as you start to dissect it, it ain't that big.
Yeah.
It ain't that big.
Yeah. And I'd also say that it's important to get comfortable with the worst case scenario. So quite often, and you'll all be able to relate to this, you're experiencing fear in the past, and in your head, it seems like the world is going to end if you take this action. Mm-hmm. And it often appears worse in our heads. So one of the best things you could do is write it down, and you'll relate to this experience. Have you ever had an experience where you've been scared of something and then you've done it and you've looked back and gone, that wasn't that bad anyway. That was actually pretty easy. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So when you get clear on the worst case scenario just by writing it down, it will allow you to calm some of that fear and to be able to make a decision to move forward. Yeah. So that would be a little tip for calming fear on the go. Now, we've been talking about some deep emotional blocks around fear of our past, but that's something you can do on the go, because here's the thing. You're always going to have fear. You are. That's going to be at a certain level. The only difference is it's the irrational fear from our past that drives us and stops us, keeps us procrastinating, doubting, avoiding, not fulfilling on our purpose, and not really truly living the life that we really want. But if we try and resist fear, the more we think it shouldn't be there and we're trying to stop it, this is what I mean about the pendulum, the more it'll swing in the opposite direction and the more of it we'll get. Because as we focus on that, you may have heard the term before, where focus goes, energy flows.
Yep, exactly. Attention, attraction. I love that concept you have of resistance. Yeah, because I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in, is that we have to figure this out. We have to focus on it. We have to dissect it. We have to do so much about it. But really, all of that is putting so much resistance and like growing this thing in the direction we don't want it to. So really just chopping it down to its size, right? Really breaking that thing apart is where you realize it. First of all, it's not even mine. It's something I picked up from mom or dad or some stupid show I watched. It's really not even like legit. Some of these fears aren't. And then I love that tip you gave, which it feels very real. I don't want to undermine anyone. These fears feel very real. Yeah. But what, like Jay says, we'll get in the ring with it, really see what this beast is all about. And that's when you'll start unraveling it. But that tip of like on the go, I love that. When you have something in your pocket where you were like, oh, okay, I remember when that panel interview scared the shit out of me. I remember when I had to go step up and do that speak or whatever. But when I did it, I actually liked it. When I did it, I got really good results. Just by you writing that down, your brain has new neural pathways that will conquer that fear. It lessens the whole energy of that fear being so big and directing your life. So that
I'll give you this one just to finish. I know, like, in terms of time. Think about the mind. Like, what's it really doing? It's projecting into the future. It's a worst case scenario. It's trying to forecast the future. It's creating simulations. So the mind's doing exactly what it's meant to be doing, by the way. It's creating simulations of worst case scenario, what could happen, because it's serving its primary function to help you survive and avoid pain, maximize pleasure. That's what it's doing. Now, you've probably had an event like this 20, 30, 40 times in your past. And so one of the things you can do, because it's so focused on the future that it forgets about all the good stuff in the past where you've overcome it. So what you can do is just take a pen and paper and just write down all of the times you've overcome a similar situation, and just acknowledge like what it took from you. What were the traits? What were some of the actions you did to overcome that, and execute on them? And that'll support you in actually moving forward, because ultimately with fear, like, I'm all about how do you keep progressing? How do you keep moving forward? How do you keep creating the results and not feeling stuck? Yeah. And if we can minimize the fear, not eliminate it completely, minimize the fear enough for us to take that next step. Yeah. That's going to give us confidence. And that's going to allow us to actually move forward and progress and create the results and the happiness that we really want for ourselves.
I couldn't even end that any better. That was phenomenal, you guys. I mean, complete 360 degrees, right? What do we do when we come across these fears? All these tips, just to unraveling it, looking at it, and knowing that it's just normal. It's a part of your life. Like, this is a part of our survival mechanism. Nothing more than that. Not here to stop you, not here to harm you, right? It's about using this to your advantage. And this is how you do it. So I could like go on and on and on with that. But you guys, if this landed with you, if this helped you at all, give me a yes, like amen, hallelujah, whatever you put down. Like, this was, if you felt this, if this inspired you, put inspired, right? And Jay, how can people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so I want to give them a little gift away, and this is a really valuable resource, right? So I want you to be able to go through a process which will bring up those fears and essentially help you to see that it's not either positive or negative, it's not right or wrong, it's just a neutral feeling. Because how can I talk about my past trauma and my fears and get so vulnerable with you, but actually I'm perfectly neutral, I'm perfectly centered and grounded in it? Well, the way I do that is I rebalance the mind, and that's all it is. So what I've put together is a free PDF, and if you go to jwilliamscoaching.com/eliminate, then you'll be able to download that free PDF. And that's going to take you through a process. And the process, I'm going to warn you, because this is going to highlight to you any limiting beliefs you have other than the fear, right? It's going to take probably about an hour to actually go through this process. Now, this is going to tell you how much you really want it, or if there's a misalignment or some kind of charge that's holding you back. Because if I'm telling you that this thing can help you eliminate fear of failure, success, rejection, humiliation, any fear you have, to the point in which you can actually continue to progress, and you're not willing to do it, then you have to take a long, hard look at yourself and ask, what is the thing that's stopping you from even doing an exercise that you know works? Because this is one of the exercises that worked for me. So go and check that out, jwilliamscoaching.com/eliminate.
Perfect. Lovely. And we're going to put that in the comments, so you'll have the link directly there on how to download that PDF. Do it now. Don't stop. You know, there is that fear that may be saying, I don't have enough time. I don't have the space or capacity to do it. What's another thing to do? Don't hold back on yourself. It's time to play full out and really take this opportunity. And you guys are here. You're my Hypno family. I wouldn't bring someone on here or a resource I didn't think wouldn't help you. So do it. Okay, go ahead and do it now. We love you. We're sending you so much love, and full circle. Here's to gaining more success and happiness in your life, is conquering those fears. And we did it here with Jay. So everyone, have a lovely afternoon, and we'll see you. Well, I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.
Bye-bye.